Hello, FloodGate family. Welcome back, everybody. This is the second week of our series to help you rock this job search. This one's going to be focused on networking, and I've got Heidi Herrick with me, who is the talent person extraordinaire, 15 years of placing hundreds of people, watching people both nail it and fail it in the job search process. So we've got some amazing things to be able to share here with you today. So I'm really glad that Heidi is with us here and can talk about the important thing of networking, Heidi. So here's a question for you on networking. Oh, before I ask questions, guys, I know you're going to have questions. So if you have questions, just type them in the chat there. If you're watching on LinkedIn below, we're going to get to them at the end. That way you can pick her big brain like I'm doing right here. But hopefully we can cover some of the stuff up front. So Heidi, back to it. The game plan for networking. What is it? Where do you start here?
Well, if you missed last week, go back, start there. We talked about naming your network. So definitely go back and listen to that because that kind of sets the stage for today. And before we really jump into the actual game plan of networking, I think it's really appropriate to kind of redefine what networking even is. I mean, we hear this term, we think about these kind of cheesy networking events where we awkwardly stand around. Obviously, we're not doing that. So I think just redefining what it even means. So a couple illustrations come to mind. When you are dating, okay, you don't go up to a girl and say, I'd like to date you. Would you date me?
So that's why I struggled so hard, Heidi?
Yes, Joe. Karen's told me that.
Okay.
But people overthink it. They make it really formal, and it doesn't need to be formal. It's connecting with people. It's engaging with people. It's showing just genuine interest in other people. And it all comes back full circle. So first thing, don't overthink it. Just keep it cool, keep it organic, and just keep it casual. So that's first off, just redefining it. The game plan for networking, an interesting statistic that I think most people have probably heard of by now, is that anywhere between 70 to 85% of jobs are filled by way of referral. Yeah. That's kind of a scary statistic for some people. It's sort of like a gut punch because they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm applying to all these jobs. So where does that leave me, right? So really the first thing that you need to do when you're networking is apply that same rule. So let's just call it an 80-20 rule. If we know that 80% of jobs are filled by way of networking, then let's spend 80% of our time that we're doing our personal outbound marketing on networking. Okay. So regardless of how much time you have for your job search, some people might have 40 hours, some people might have 10 hours, do the math. 80% of that time should be spent networking. So that's first and foremost, that's kind of the real basic brass tacks.
And I would say, Heidi, I mean, you reset that goal and just like anything you do, right, that consistency matters. And let's face it, doing and calling people and having that conversation, it can be a bit intimidating. You'll find other things to do ahead of it. You'll want to clean the garage, fun things like reorganize your closet ahead of networking, right? So I will say once you've set that, also set a goal, right? An achievable goal that every day I'm going to get a hold of 4 people. I'm going to get a hold of 5 people. I'm going to get a hold of 1. Whatever that is, find it, stick with it. Maybe find someone to hold you accountable. I know you're getting a good accountability group together to help each other do that in your boot camp, which is going to be awesome. But that type of thing, I think, makes a difference, and then you go back that first group, we talk about value proposition, because once you have it, now you got, the value you can bring. So when you're having that conversation, it's normal, it's real. It's like, hey, here's how I can help you. And that's what's important.
Yeah. And a lot of people wonder, where do I even start? Right. I watched the video last week and I've scrolled through my phone and I've got all my email contacts and all my LinkedIn people. And now I've got this huge list of people. Where do I even start? So I mentioned this last week. A lot of people want to start with their besties, the people they feel most comfortable with.
Right.
If your bestie happens to be the VP of sales or the CEO of your target company, perfect, right? One and done. That's a kind of a BOGO. But it's probably not. Your bestie's probably not that person. So you really want to start strategically by thinking about, okay, I've drafted my, call it top 25 list of target companies. If that's my priority, I'm going to start there. Or let's just say, for example, my top priority is I have to stay in San Diego. I'm not relocatable. I love to surf. I don't want to surf in Texas. I'm staying in San Diego. Okay. Yeah. So for me, it might be, I'm going to start with not necessarily my top 25 companies I want to work for, but maybe I'm going to start with my top 20 companies that are based in Carlsbad. So your priorities might be different. You have to think through what those priorities are and then start there. So that means, okay, now I've got my top 25 companies in Carlsbad. Now I'm going to go straight to fill in the blank. Okay. If I'm a Southwest area sales director, I'm going to now target those VP of sales or VP of the sales for the West, right? That are located by me in the industry that I want to be in. And that's really how you start. You don't just start randomly or with the people that you're closest with.
Yep, absolutely. And you mentioned the long list before, right? And I know people sometimes will make the list and it's not as long as they thought the first time around, right? But what we always challenge people is, hey, think of the places, and you'll be surprised once you start putting people in places, the way those names are going to add up. Think of that hospital, that trade show, that board meeting you went to, even if it's years ago, and then you'll be like, who was there? Oh yeah, oh man, and you'll be surprised. The names will start flowing onto that sheet of that target of people you need to network with.
Yep.
So.
And the way that it's working is, think about it like networking is sort of like gardening. You start with a list, you start with your seeds, but it's going to grow. If it's not growing, it's not working. So we're going to get to this in a moment, but every time you have those calls, you should be, it's like a spider web. It should be exponentially growing and moving out into these little fingers as, you refer this person, I talk to that person, they refer somebody else, and so on.
So perfect segue here for you. So what is that goal? I mean, it sounds like you want to get that spider web going out there. Mm-hmm. What is the real goal of each of these calls, these networking meetings, which probably aren't going to be live for a little while?
Yep. So we go into this in a little bit more detail in the boot camps, but we talk about, okay, who, what, where, when, and why. Okay. It's a common kind of a thing that we use in different settings, but who do I start with? Okay. Where is this taking place? What am I trying to gain out of the call, and why should this person help me? Okay. Mm-hmm. So we don't have time to go into the weeds, but the call, at the end of the call, your takeaway should be either this person is referring me to someone else, or this person is going to potentially introduce me to someone at their company, meaning, mm-hmm. Feeding me into a possible opening at their company. Or if neither of those, then maybe just a follow-up phone call in a couple weeks. But you should absolutely have a goal coming out of that call. And it really depends on the person. I don't think I think it's tough to say generically what that goal is, because it's going to depend on who that person is.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And, I got two great questions I've been taught to ask that really helps find that referral, mm-hmm. because most people, they don't know of a job that's open, right? 99% of the calls, they're not going to be aware of that opportunity. But there's two things that everyone knows. One, which companies they respect, yep. So that will give you some target companies you might have never heard of in your space, which is beneficial. But as a follow-up, if they know one of those companies they really respect, do they know someone there that they can introduce you to, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a great follow-up. And then the second one is not just the companies they respect, but who are the people?
Yes.
And I always lead in is, hey, I'm reaching out to you because I respect you. That time when we used to work together, 12 years ago. I always respected you. Is there someone that you respect that you can introduce me to? Everyone has that.
Yep.
And
that's a great question, because they're probably not going to be they're not thinking along that line. They're not necessarily, racking their brain on that conversation, thinking about somebody. But if you ask, undoubtedly they'll have someone, or they'll be able to, text you after the call once they've thought of that person. So that's a great point.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a good follow-up. They don't have somebody is, hey, here's, if you think of somebody, ping me back, right? Thanks for the time today. So that's great. And now, question on networking. What about people like us? I mean, are we worthwhile networking to, or are we just a waste of time?
Joe, I think you're worthwhile.
I don't know about it. It depends who you talk to, or who I paid off recently. So,
this is obviously a tough question. We're biased, right? We're recruiters. So I'm going to try to answer this as objectively as possible. So I think a lot of job seekers overvalue recruiters. I think that they think, in the context of this question, I think we're undervalued in other ways, but another LinkedIn Live for that. I think that job seekers think that we are sports agents, right? And they're the professional athlete. And they want us to go out and market them to employers. I think that used to happen probably before my time. It's not a common practice. So it's just not the way the industry works. Yeah. So I think that job seekers need to have low expectation of recruiters. I think it's smart. Certainly that they are including recruiters in their outbound marketing when we talked about this last week, when they've got their personal brand together, they're sending out those email messages with their value proposition and specifics about what they're looking for. Certainly a good idea to keep them in their weekly, cadence, outbound work, but it's not, I wouldn't invest as much time in networking with recruiters as I would with my professional network.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I truly agree with that. I mean, there is that concept of, hey, I've talked to 4 recruiters, they're going to go find me a job. No, it's not a talent agent, right? It's not the way it really works. On a rare occasion, it does. It's timing, right? Yeah. If we have a client that has the need that you show up and you ping at the right time, or within the last couple weeks, or you're in our database and that need comes up, bam, great. So make sure you cover the bases, right? Get to every recruiter, have a cycle so you stay on their radar. So when that job does come up, that they remember you, but don't think I've talked to all the great recruiters, I'm going to get a job as a result, right? It's part of the process, to your point, Heidi, and it should be covered, but don't over rely on it. Right. I think it's the way the way I'd coach it.
Yep, exactly.
No, good. So, you've got to have that follow-up, right? You got to go after people, et cetera, but this is always a touchy one. And I get this a lot. How aggressive do you need to be?
I would err on the side of being overly aggressive. I really would. The market's flooded right now. There are so many job seekers that are competing for the very limited number of jobs that are available right now. So I really would err on the side of I use this term, zigging when everyone else is zagging. If everyone else is applying to jobs and then just kind of beating their head against the wall and thinking like, oh my gosh, I've applied to 50 jobs this week and all I've gotten is this automated response. Well, you don't want to be that guy. So stop doing that, which is the passive kind of wide, easy path, and start going up that switchback, back of the mountain path, which is a lot harder, and you have to be more aggressive about it. But what's the worst that's going to happen? That person's not going to respond. That's it. So be aggressive, put yourself out there. It's easy to find contact information. I get this all the time. Job seekers say, well, I don't have their contact information. And it's like, you're in sales. You know how to do this.
Right. There's apps, there's programs, there's things you can buy. There's connect with them, and they have it on their LinkedIn profile a lot of times, right? I mean,
yes. And you can even do a little trial and error. Joe Kong at FloodGate Medical. Yeah, right. FloodGate Medical. I mean, there's only a few options. So play around, but definitely be aggressive, follow up. I think it takes, I'm going to throw out a quote. I think it takes like 6 or 7 touches, marketing touches before you convert, right, Joe, to a lead.
It takes six times for someone to remember something. And if you're going after sales or marketing, we're all ADD, so it's probably 27 times.
Yeah.
So even more so. And I will agree. I mean, as my former role, I was an SVP of a business unit. I would have remember a couple occasions I'd get an email randomly for a job that we had as a sales rep, a couple levels lower, someone going after it. I want it. Here's why. Guess, you know what? I was impressed. I'm like, I like that person with that kind of hustle, not scared to go to the top.
Yeah.
And so I forwarded it down. They got an interview. I don't remember if they actually won the job, but they got the audience.
Yeah.
Right. And so worst case scenario, I would have deleted it or not seen it.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
It's always better to go for it than to not go for it, because the worst that can happen is they tell you no versus not knowing. Right. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
No. Yeah. As long as you do it with EQ, that would be my only suggestions. Right.
Yeah.
I hope I don't have to say that, but don't burn a bridge, blow something up, do it with the right level of EQ and understanding, but that pleasantly persistence or pleasant aggressiveness, whatever you want to call it, is the right approach. So good stuff. Now, I know we just kind of talked about not having the right EQ, might be one of the blunders, but what are some of the other big blunders that you've seen when people are networking over the years here, Heidi?
Yeah, there's quite a few. So these are in no particular order, but I think one of the blunders that I see a lot of is people coming into networking calls without an agenda and without being prepared. So they ask for 15 minutes of someone's time, someone's very valuable time, and they've done no research on the person. They've done no research on the company that they work for. They don't have intelligent questions. They don't have a goal for the call. And it's, to your point earlier, it's a wasted opportunity, and that bridge is burned. So that's one huge blunder that I see. Another blunder that I see is sort of this game of numbers, where people think, well, if I put out enough messages, surely someone will respond, which is partially true. But these big networking blasts to 50 people, dear sir, dear madam, my resume is attached, that it just doesn't work. Going back to the point earlier, networking is this natural engagement. It's a relationship. It's not a transaction. So those mass blitzes, they really don't work. And then thirdly, I would say, I don't know if this is one of the questions. I think one of the job seekers sent this in earlier, so I'm going to maybe cover it early. But, I've had people ask me, should I send a resume? And the answer is yes, but it really is timing. Do you send it first? Do you wait? In my opinion, I think if you just send it right out of the gate, you're making a lot of assumptions, and you're creating sort of this element of transaction. I'm sending you my resume, and I want you to, what you're saying without saying is, I want you to review it and do something with it, right? Instead of saying, hey, Joe, my name's Heidi. I live in Carlsbad. I noticed that you used to work for DJO. Can we chat? I'd love to hear more about DJO and your time there. See the difference? I mean, the second is this personal invitation for a relationship, whereas the former is this transaction of, I want you to do something for me. And if you don't do it for me, then I'm going to be disappointed. And all I want out of you is for you to do something for me. Right. So I think the resume comes, but I don't think it comes first. It's so much sweeter when the other person says, hey, can you send me your resume? Then they really mean it, and they're really going to do something with it.
Absolutely. And when they do something with it, if they don't really know you or truly, feel like you have value beyond the piece of paper, they're not going to put any context around it.
Right.
It's going to look like another application.
Yep. 100%. Yep. You have to think about it as a relationship. And lastly, a blunder that people, it's kind of, maybe, I don't know if it falls into this question, but networking is something that we should all be doing all the time. It's not something that we do when we're job seeking. And it doesn't need to be this formal thing, but we really need to put effort into creating that pattern of weekly engagement with people that are in our space that we can learn from, that we can help. And actually, that's another point. So one more, sorry, I'm on a little bunny trail.
On the roll here.
When another blunder that people make when they're on these networking calls is they think about it as a one-way street. How can this person help me? And right out of the gate, that's the wrong paradigm, okay? Because networking really is a two-way street. And so before you go into that call, spend some time and think about how you might help them. Even if you're out of work right now, maybe you have a relationship with someone that's a C-suite decision maker, or someone that's in purchasing, or someone that works in fill in the blank, right? So you might be able to open up a door for them, but you thinking about it on the front end and offering that unsolicited to them really pays huge dividends. And you do that over and over again, you're going to be blown away.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. So great tips there. I love some of those. Now, that's what you're not supposed to do. But if you think you're doing everything right, what are some of the signs that's actually working? And because I know it takes longer than you think. So what are the early signs that it's working?
Yeah. I mean, this is such a tough question, right? People need to plan for the long play. This is not a short one-hit wonder kind of a thing. So the way that it's working is that your calendar is filling up with more and more conversations with more and more people that you didn't know last week, last month, last quarter. So those conversations should give you encouragement that your work is like a seed, that's being planted, that's going to blossom. And you need to be encouraged by those metrics, that those calls are happening, that you're getting leads from those calls, and that people are agreeing to speak with you and exchange ideas. Obviously, if people are referring you to their boss or their coworkers, that's a clear indicator of success as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. You got to celebrate the conversation, celebrate the access, because the job, the interview, it's going to come for a while. And if that bell is going to ring only so often, and that's not enough to keep that Pavlovian effect rolling. So fully agree. So, all right, I want to take a moment, see if we have any questions from our FloodGate family here. Let's see if we got anything coming through. So I do have something from Jim. It looks like he's out of Albuquerque. And Jim was wanting to know, that introduction, someone you don't know, they've been introduced. Give me that. What's that introduction when you're reaching out to try to, what's the most impactful way to get someone's attention that, you're reaching out to cold?
Oh, someone that you've been introduced by a mutual friend, or someone that
you're kind of, it's one of that, that 25 companies in Carlsbad that's a VP of sales, that example, right? You're trying to network with them. What's something, that would get their attention?
Well, first of all, I would try to get off LinkedIn as quickly as possible. LinkedIn, there's a lot of white noise there. So sending a LinkedIn message, while it's a little bit easier, I think would reduce, or would deliver less results, more diminished results. So I would try to do a personal email. And again, it's quality over quantity. So take more time on the front end to research that person, know where they went to college, right? Know a little bit about their background, which is pretty easy now with LinkedIn profiles or even social media handles. So, hey, Jim, hey, I noticed that you live in blank. Your favorite sports team is probably blank. Obviously, this would be more scripted than that. But the point is plugging specific information about them that right? You're kind of bragging that you know about them. And hey, as the VP of blank, 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 I'm sure you're losing sleep over blank, 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 right? You're kind of showing off that you know a little bit about his business, to the point where you've maybe uncovered a possible need or a problem that he's facing. And hey, I was wondering if we could catch up so I could, ask you a few questions about blank, blank, blank.
Yeah.
Do you have 15 minutes this Friday? And I think trying to tack things on a Friday is a lot easier than saying open-ended. When can we talk?
Yeah. Giving them a time. You're getting a specific ask. Yep.
Friday afternoon, you got 15 minutes. I'll give you a buzz.
Yeah. And the more tight you can get on that is, hey, Jim, I noticed, looks like we're both surfers. Did you, I had a great break at, Trestles the other day, and, have you surfed that recently? But I also saw that you launched that new robotic system.
Right.
Incredible. And as a former whatever, I'm really curious on how that's going, and love to see if we can help each other. When do you have time? You have a window on Friday, right? This guy's already thinking, cool. Sounds like a work call, but I could talk surfing too, and I love that. So, more likely to take that opportunity. Now, you also remember it's cold. You're going to get a small amount of bites, so don't get discouraged if that comes.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps you there, Jim. All right. So, guys, we're going to continue this process. This next week's going to be how to prepare for an interview. So make sure you check back. It's a 4-week series. Also, we have boot camps going on that can help people. And since this is networking and 75% of people come from referrals, we have the new FloodGate Finder where you can help out a friend. They can help out you. Great way to connect people. So check that out if you're not aware of it. So guys, please make any comments you have below, and any questions you think of later. If you want to comment below, we'll be answering those questions as they come up, and we'll be monitoring that feed. So with that, Heidi, thanks for dropping the knowledge on everybody, making us better, making us all better candidates, especially under a difficult time. Thank you, everybody, for being here.